Welcome to episode 77.
The dark time of the year.
Ooh, yay. There are a number of associations that the dominant culture makes about light and dark.
Join us as we discuss how we experience the dark time of the year in our circle, individually as a collective, through goddess, through ritual, through song, movement, and sinking energy.
Stay tuned. Welcome to the Witchy Wit podcast, where we look at life through a witchy lens. I'm Kimberlyn.
I'm Leilani.
At Witchy Wit, we explore current events,
Ideas,
music and books,
and experiences in ways that recognize energy and life in everybody and everything.
We are both real witches.
And we bring two real perspectives through the lens of our different ages,
Races,
and backgrounds.
with a healthy skepticism for what we have been told is true. Our conversations are raw, candid, and vulnerable.
Join us as we cast a spell to uncover what we each know is true in our intuitive, witchy selves.
Welcome to episode 77.
The dark time of the year.
Ooh. So I'm pretty excited about our episode today, but before we dive into that, let's talk a little bit about what we've been doing away from the podcast.
I'd love that. Would you be willing to go first?
Sure, I'd love to go first. So I just spent this past weekend with family, and I drove to Georgia, and one of my aunts turned 90, so it was a weekend celebration, and it's just so funny. I'm not as close with them, and for a number of reasons. I think part of it is distance. And this is my mom's side, and then my father's side embraced us so much that they kind of took all of our space, our familial space. But anyway, what was so funny was seeing family drama from the outside, because I'm not an integral part of that group. They were very welcoming and loving, etc. But watching the different dynamics and who's kind of tense with who and who's done with the other, and oh my God, she's doing that again, that kind of stuff. It was so fascinating for me because you don't often get that opportunity with someone else, like with a friend's family. They're usually on better behavior, right?
Yes.
And with your own family, you're in it. Or I'm in it. So it's hard for me to be able to kind of be objective, maybe. And it just reminds me so much of how with my father's side of the family, the ones I know the most, a lot of them live in New Jersey or they have ties to New Jersey. I've said this in the past. We put the fun in dysfunctional.
You do. I love that. I love that saying.
So and as you know, my screensaver is a picture of the family. So
beautiful, very candid, full of energy. I would say
full of energy, and I will be seeing them in a couple of weeks. So it's nice. I mean, it's interesting. I don't know if it's nice, but it's interesting to have that contrast between two different sides of people who contributed to who I am, right? So it'll be nice to see them, and we've already started, our gear up for girding up our loins for a big family thing on our family chat. So it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I'm super, super excited about it, and it makes me appreciate them a lot more. What about with you?
I love that.
Thank you.
I wanted to share, last night was the night that I pulled out all of the holiday decorations. And so I had a really great...
What holiday?
That's a good question. Some of it was winter solstice-y, because that's how I identify what I identify as celebrating. Some of it was I would call cultural Christmas. Yeah. Like a cultural Christmas celebration. Yeah.
Thank you.
Blending it with my witchiness. So for the culturally Christmas decorations, I have a full-size replica of the leg lamp from A Christmas Story, which is my favorite Christmas movie. And so I put that up. Actually, the light in the knee of the lamp went out 2 years ago. So my partner and I we're doing like surgery on the lamp because it's not meant to. It's not disposable, but it's like something where you use it for years and you throw it away. I've had it for a very long time, so we were like X-Acto knifing it and like taking it apart. And at one point in time, the fishnet stockings were like, we like pulled it down so it's like around the ankle, and it felt so naughty. And I'm like holding this full size leg, and the fishnets are down by the ankles, and yeah,
it's kind of risque, right?
It did. I was like, whoa.
So did you get the bulb?
We did get the bulb in, and it's up in my front window. And I went outside and stood on the street, just like they do in the movie. And I looked at it, and I was just like, that's a major award. Which is what they say in the movie.
Yeah.
But it looks great because there's no other decorations on the on my house. And then there's just this...
leg lamp.
This giant leg lamp. They say in the movie, the soft glow of electric sex emanating from the living room window. And I just have it going...
That is perfect. So I love it.
It was wonderful. And then I posted a video on Patreon where I did a tour of my mantle, my holiday mantle.
Good.
Yeah. And I just was really pleased with myself. I have it's about this tall, like 1.5 feet tallish. Okay. And it's a witch nutcracker.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
And so that's on my mantle. And then I also have my year card candle, the hanged one on my altar, on my mantle. And then I have like a black ceramic Christmas tree with a witch hat on top. That's like reminiscent of the ones they used to make in the 70s and 80s, I think.
Right.
Yeah. And so I have that there, and then I have my cauldron. And then last year I bought new stockings. They're black stockings. So like my whole mantle is like very black. And then I have like air quotes Christmas lights, but they're witch hats. So I have that strung around the mirror. So I was standing there looking at it, and I thought, this is such a cool blend of like Christmas, but also me being a witch. So I took a video and posted it on Patreon. So anybody over here, if you want to pop over to our Patreon.
Lovely. Yeah. Well, I haven't seen it, so I'll go over there too.
It
sounds like a lot of fun.
It's pretty cute. Oh, and I also have like little Christmas witch books that I've collected over the years.
What are those?
Just like any sort of book that has to do with the Christmas witch. It's just random.
Oh my gosh!
I've picked it up over the years, and so.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds like a lot of fun.
It's really fun.
Yay!
So maybe that's kind of a good segue into what we're talking about today.
Exactly. So I mean, you actually came up with this idea. Do you want to talk a little bit about why you decided?
Yes,
that this would be something to do.
Yeah, I suggested talking about the dark time of the year because. For a number of reasons that I think you and I share some and maybe are different on others, but I'm not really, my own practice as a witch is not super goddess oriented. And it's just, I find myself orienting slightly different than other witches, which is not to say it's better or worse. It's just different. And so for me, the wheel of the year is a really important concept, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And the concept of like a dark time of the year and a light time of the year, I find to be really, really important in my practice and the way that I organize energy and the way I experience the passage of time and the way I worship.
Right. I so get what you're saying. It's amazing. And let me take a step back and just say, kind of as a guidepost to our listeners, we have done in the past, we've done a Yule episode, and so we're going to be touching on Yule, but we're more talking about this whole seasonal, this idea of going into the dark time, and we'll talk about what that looks like. Well, we know what it looks like, but what that means.
Spoiler alert! It's darker.
Okay, we're done.
Right, end of episode.
So, but we'll talk more about like kind of these cultural things and the ways in which people explore this. So yeah. First of all, I just want to say your leg lamp is like totally kicking us into the dark time of the year. So thank you so much with the black fishnet stockings.
Yes, we did pull the fishnets up now. Oh, okay, so now the lamp is risque in the way it's meant to be.
not in that kind of like, okay, this is the end of the evening. Like, yeah. Okay, gotcha. Okay, great. So, shall we talk a little bit about when we say the dark time of the year? What kind of the contrast, I guess, between light and dark. What do we kind of mean? Or what do you mean? And then I'll...
Sure. Would it be cool if we talked first about...
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yeah,
like,
totally.
I just wanted to bring up, because I find myself struggling with this when we talk about the light and the dark time. But this concept of like light is good and dark is bad. And or like light is safe and dark is dangerous, or light is clean and dark is dirty and staying. Like, I just think there's a lot of associations in our culture around those things. And as I was I've been unpacking this for a few years because this is such an important concept in my witchcraft practice. And some of it feels, for me, feels removed from my practice as a witch, where light and dark are so different for me. Light and dark are so removed from the mainstream culture, my interpretation and experience of light and dark, that it feels totally removed. But then at the same time, it also feels 100% enmeshed with this like distortion of what light and dark is. And so I wanted to just bring that up, these positive and negative associations with the words, because I think it's impossible for me to untangle it from them, even though they're such important words for me. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because I have for years struggled with, love and light, and and partially because racially, this is a marker, it's very Western European marker that colors everything. But this whole idea of race and skin color and darkness and light. And so I, even when I do, like mantras or some spiritual work, I'm constantly trying to reframe that concept that people are referring to when they say light. And I try to use, I wouldn't even say that I'm using culturally sensitive terms, but I'm just trying to use terms that make more sense for me, so that I don't get that sense of dark is bad and light is good. So, and I spend a lot of time, it's so funny when you said this, because I spend a lot of time internally, I don't share it with a lot of people, but I spend a lot of time doing that. And so it's so good to hear somebody else being sensitive to these issues,
okay.
Cool. Yeah,
cool.
I appreciate that.
I didn't think I was alone in it, but I haven't heard a discussion about this in our circle, which maybe would be interesting.
Yeah, it would be, because I wonder if a lot of people are kind of working their way through some of these things, and it doesn't come up in conversation. So how would we know, right? So this would be an interesting topic for like maybe one of our non-ritual meetings. Yeah,
that is interesting.
Good.
Okay, so with that, with solving nothing and just acknowledging that there's some complex,
some complexity around the concepts and feelings, in my case, feelings about these, and just acknowledging, and let's move on.
All right.
Okay. So
let's do it. The dark time of the year.
So we talk about the dark time of the year.
What is it?
What is it? I've heard, it's funny because I've heard other people talk about the dark days of winter. Have you heard that term?
I have heard the dark days of winter.
Mm-hmm. So I kind of put that in our outline. But this whole idea of moving, of the days growing gradually, the light part of the day growing gradually shorter over the course of the year, and then hitting a point where it changes, right? And so, and I think, and we'll talk more about this, but I think one of the reasons that there's some stigma around that is because our bodies develop energy, vitamin D, et cetera, from sun, right? And so when we have less of that, there's, emotionally, people, I used to suffer from seasonal affective disorder. Yeah. And so, I mean, it really does make a difference having the amount of light. And that's why people like in Scandinavia they go crazy in the summer because there's like no night.
Yes.
And they just like lose their freaking mind, which sounds like a party to me, but Yeah. So, but then in the winter, people apparently are more, have, problems with depression, other emotional issues and stuff like that. But let's talk about that. So basically, what the dark days of winter, or the dark time of the year, is a period where we're moving from the equinox in the fall, in September, day of a point of equal day and light, of light and dark, and then we're moving towards the point at which the sun has its least presence on one day, and then after that things change, right? And so there's I put a whole bunch of geek stuff that I will not share with everybody, but I was just so excited, and the idea being that this is basically kind of this dance between something called the equation of time and the sun's declination. And basically the equation of time is, the difference between when it's 12 noon on our clocks,
Yes.
this agreement that we've all made that is 12 noon, and what is the actual solar noon, right?
Yes.
And how that changes based on where you are in your time zone, and how far north and south you are, and then the sun's declination is just the amount of distance above or below the equator. Okay, and so and it changes on a yearly cycle, and I think they figured out it was like 19 years or something, or I can't remember. But the whole idea meaning that where the sun moves, that the amount of movement that you see over the course of the day until you get to the solstice, which basically means the sun stays. I can't remember the Latin conjugation, but it basically means the sun at rest, or the sun staying still. Oh. And that's when you have this period where it seems like the sun is frozen in the sky.
Wow.
And that's the solstice. So we have one in the winter, and then we have one in the summer, and that's what the solstice is. So it seems like it's not moving. And so we have basically this takes place depending on all of those different variables. It's called the first day of winter, December 21st-ish. Again. Working with arbitrary calendars, and I did a deep dive last night. We were doing a little outline, and I'd gotten in late, but I couldn't go to sleep, and so I did a deep dive on the different types of calendars that we use, the Gregorian calendar, and like the Julian calendar, and then the lunar solar calendars, like the Islamic calendar, and various calendars that have different, like what's the first day of the year, because that, in our case, the first day of the year happens very soon after the summer solstice, and what the decisions were about that, because the calendar that we came from, and then I'm going to stop before I lose everybody. The calendar that we came from was the Julian calendar, developed by Julius Caesar, and the first day of the year was March 31st or March 23rd or something like that.
I did not know that.
Yes, indeed, and so it was pushed back so that it coincided a little bit more with like this, what they considered the solar start of the year, which is the solstice.
Oh.
Right? When the sun is getting bigger.
Yeah.
So that's the beginning of the life for the sun.
Yeah. Yeah, and then Christians took it with the birth of the sun.
Yes, the birth of the sun.
The return
That's
of the
what,
sun.
Yeah, because we don't know when Jesus was. We could talk about that.
Right.
In fact, we played a song about that a few years ago. But yeah, the coincidence. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of geeking out over the solstice, because that's kind of the linchpin, or the marker of the dark time of the year, right? So we start moving. The days start getting shorter the days start getting shorter at the summer solstice, which I love that idea, that the day that is like the longest day, the next day the day is shorter and shorter and so yeah. So if you're kind of doing emotional stuff around that, while we're still running around in our trunks, getting wet and stuff on the beach, the days are getting shorter. Wow. I think that's so exciting.
I do. It's such a witchy thing. I think that's so witchy.
Indeed. So, yeah.
Yes. So speaking of witchy, I'd like to take kind of what you just spoke about and then and frame it, pivot from the nerd perspective and maybe pivot into witchy nerd perspective.
I'm so glad I waited to take a sip on that one.
From your Hocus Pocus mug.
From my Hocus Pocus.
I love it. So let's talk. I'm going to talk about the dark time of the year from a witchy perspective, and particularly from my witchy perspective. So if anyone is looking for specifics, you're probably not going to find it in this section, because like so much of my experience in witchcraft, things are different for different traditions. And then even like, for example, even within our circle, there's so many different beliefs and practices around things, so much nuance around it. So
yeah, a lot of richness.
Yes, yeah, I would agree with that. I learn something new all the time from the people around me in their practice. So just in case you're not familiar, our listeners aren't familiar with the Wheel of the Year, instead of picturing time as linear, where time starts in January and then moves all the way through in a line through December, instead take those two ends and connect them and make a wheel. And then, so you go all the way around the 12 months, but then instead of when you're done and being at the end of a line, you've arrived back where you started. And I think during one of our episodes, you even talked about a spiral. So you're in a different place, but a similar place, but still different.
Because you've changed.
Yes.
Or I've changed.
And the world has changed.
And the world has changed. And just so everyone knows, I will put a link to one, there's millions of versions, but to one version in our show notes.
Awesome. And then just another, I feel like I'm having disclaimers on every time I talk, but I'm just going to reference this a lot as we talk about the Wheel of the Year, but I find that our overculture, we focus on, I think our overculture focuses on beginnings, new things, births, weddings, things starting, the daytime, light, and I find a lot of energy around that. It's interesting. Like, I think most people will realize more people are at their wedding than at their 50th anniversary, right? Like I think as a culture, we celebrate birth more than we honor death, I think, a lot.
That's amazing. I love that. And when you think about it, at the wedding, you're celebrating these two people starting a new life together, but we're also celebrating the end of their individual lives, right? So, but we don't focus on that. We focus on like you say, the bright, shiny new stuff.
Yes.
Right? And I think of like markers like rites of passage for children. It's the end of their childhood, but we don't think of that. We think of, okay, now they're adults.
Yes.
Yeah. Whoa.
That's I hadn't framed it that way. That's interesting.
Whoa.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to chew on that
I know.
for a really long time.
I'm gonna have to let that sit in my head for a bit.
Yeah. So we're gonna have to think about that more.
But I like that idea when you were saying about the wheel. The idea is that you can't just start some. I mean, at any beginning, there's an end, right? And oh wow,
yeah. And I think that's something in my experience as a witch and as a pagan, I've noticed, at least in my practice and what I think I see the witchy culture do in general is this acknowledgement and respect and worship and richness in the light and the dark parts. So even down to like on most Wheel of the Years that I've seen, when the circle is kind of divided into the light time and the dark time, half of the circle is a lighter color and then half of the circle is a darker color. Sometimes even with a gradient of like really bright fading into more dark, reaching the dark, and then fading into more light. And that to me is a visual representation of this honoring of all parts. Like our culture really honors or worships youth.
Oh my gosh.
But my experiences in pagan circles and in witchy circles is there is a honoring of the old, of the crones, of death, of separation, of ending, of transformation. And I think I see that manifesting here in this discussion about light and dark time, and I think that's really not as present in our overculture.
Oh yeah. And it's not, in my opinion, it's not that, okay, crone. It's not like we're celebrating one over another. I think that what I appreciate so much about at least our circle and the circles that, the witchy circles that I've seen, is this understanding that it's all important, right? That you need the maiden, you need the mother, you need the crone, and we celebrate them all at different times and sometimes at the same time, and an acknowledgement of this paradox that we are all of those things. Sometimes we're maiden. Sometimes I'm maidenish, at my advanced age. But that acknowledgement of the paradox that you're going to be a crone, but you know what? You keep circling, you're going to start doing some maiden stuff again, and it's like like the wheel, and sometimes you kind of spring through it, and sometimes you kind of creep through it, but it's there.
Yeah. So I thought, okay, so I was thinking about when I consider the dark time of the year. My personal I think is, because I hadn't really actually ever thought of like when exactly does it start. But I was thinking, for me, I think a lot of it starts, I'm like pointing as if there's like a wheel in front of me, on this side with the fall equinox, and then to the spring equinox. So then everything in between that in the winter time is the dark time of the year. And so like on those wheels of the year, those would be the darker colors, and then the opposite, those are the light time of the year.
Yeah, that makes sense to
So
me.
like,
I like that.
So just kind of like an easy reference there. Now let's make it more complicated.
Yeah.
Some people view the dark time of the year beginning on Samhain. Yeah. So October 31st. And that is like the Celtic New Year. And so I do hear people say like Happy New Year. I've been, greeted Happy New Year on Samhain. And one of the things I love about that is Samhain for me is this practice of really looking at death and connecting with the beloved dead, the people that I love who have gone over, this acknowledgement of death, that death is ever present. And then at the same time, people are like, Happy New Year. Yeah. And this goes back to exactly like what you just brought up earlier, which is this, like we're like focusing on the light, but we forget about the dark in our culture. And boy, if that isn't present on Samhain, Happy New Year! And then you're like, there's like skulls everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh yeah. Yeah. No, it's and it also represents how when you approach anything, there's like there are myriad aspects of it. So what do you focus on? The stuff that resonates for you, right? So I'm sure that for some people that's when they sweep their homes and they throw open the windows and okay, we're letting in the new year, we're letting in the new life, the new light, the new all of this kind of stuff. And other people are, sitting, ripping their shirts and wailing and calling upon their ancestors. I'm waiting for you, that kind of stuff. So, and there's room for all of that, right? Yeah.
I love that. I think there is room for all of that.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Especially in this practice, which offers such diversity. Another idea is some view Samhain as the beginning of the dark time of the year, but then there's like a kind of like a fallow period between Samhain and winter solstice. So almost, I don't want to say like a timeout, but like that like a fallow period, a time of pause, and then they start after winter solstice is the beginning of the year.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, I've seen that. Well, so here I'm wondering if some of that is kind of conditioned agriculturally, right? Because Samhain is the last harvest, right? The last of 3 harvests, and people are kind of hunkering down and making sure the jams are preserved and that everything that they've brought in is going to be safe, that's going to last, right? Yeah. So there's this period, and it could be considered fallow. You're putting things in, you're putting things by, you're putting things, you're protecting and preserving and saving things, and then what are you going to do with that? That's when maybe you start addressing. Because one of the things we talked about with Yule a couple of years ago is the fact that some of that energy is about, okay, we're lighting these candles hoping that we'll have fire, food, life through until we can plant again, right? And so maybe Yule is that opportunity. It's kind of that Sagittarius kind of energy too, right? That kind of, okay, let's take stock, people, and that's what one does at the beginning of, okay, let's see how we're going to move forward with this, right? This is what we've got, okay? Let's look and see what we've got. Now, what are we going to do with it?
And thinking about what it would be like, obviously, I live in Texas. The snowpocalypse of 2020 was like, when they're,
the end of the world,
right? The grocery stores were closed, people were freaking out. I still had a pantry. Like, okay, I didn't have like my vegan corn dogs, but I was able to like open up a can and eat something. I'm like, that's the closest I've ever gotten to what you're talking about. And when I think about what that would be like, and that energy of will we make it, as I'm going through this dark time of the year, and then to hit winter solstice, and almost to take like okay, it's coming, the light is coming,
yes, yes.
And to feel, I'm imagining that sense of relief, like it's coming, the light is coming. I can see the end, and I know for me, as whenever I'm doing something really hard, if I lose sight on the end, I can get lost really easy and give up. But when I can see the end, whether it's the end of where I'm running to or like something that I'm trying to achieve, it really helps keep me going.
Right. That makes so much sense. And one of the things that struck me about that, as you were talking about this, what do we have? What are we going to be able to survive? Yule to me is so very communal. It's about like, will the village, will the clan, will the family survive? And, like, what do we need to do to make sure like the little ones or the old ones or whatever, how can we, not I, how can we be solvent? How can we make sure that we're sustainable, et cetera, et cetera? And so, so many of the customs that we have around Yule and Christmas are about community, right? About family. And I'm wondering, this just struck me, so I haven't thought this through, but I'm wondering if, that whole idea, a lot of the things that have come about as traditions are reflective of that little kernel of, can we survive as a community? Wow.
Yeah. That's cool. I never thought about that before.
I'm a historian, so, those are the things that jazz me. So, yeah.
Another thing I thought would be cool to talk about is the dark time. As I was typing out our notes, I typed, the dark time peaks at the longest night on winter solstice. And then I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, I don't actually think it peaks. I think it sinks.
It sinks, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Like the dark time sinks to the longest night at winter solstice. And I'm bringing that up because for me, the dark time of the year is about this energy sinking.
Yes.
And we'll come back to that as soon as I get off of my Wheel of the Year soapbox.
Okay, yeah. But I do want to come back to that because,
Yeah, so it sinks at the lowest night on winter solstice. And the more I think about it, like that really resonates for me as the beginning of a year. That's like where I think I unconsciously was marking it. And then that's also tied with the Lunar New Year, which I also view as like the beginning of a new year. And the Lunar New Year, which is the Chinese New Year, and that begins on the first new moon that appears sometime between January 21st and February 20th.
Yeah.
It's in that window. But and we had a whole episode about where we just went on a rant about calendars.
Yeah, and lunar versus solar.
And like man-made artificial time construction versus using something natural like the moon or the sun. So but that is all another time that. So I think, and then you and I talked about too, like being teachers. The academic calendar is another calendar that I have laid on top of my life. So there's just a lot of times for beginnings. But I do find it interesting. I couldn't find anything on the end of the year. I could only find information on the beginning of the year. And I think that goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning. This fascination, this obsession with the new and the beginnings instead of completion.
And the bright and the shiny and the growth and this and this is very much about fallow. This is very much about, okay, we're going to hunker down. We can't grow anything else. So we're just going to make sure we can preserve and take care of and in some cases parcel out what we have. And there's nothing else growing. We have, whatever it is, this is it. And so that energy and that's why I think in some places where we have Imbolc as the new year, because that's when something new like the little sprouts or the lambs are being born or whatever. And we have this sense of, okay, things are happening, things are moving. This is, we've survived, and soon other things will be happening, right?
Yeah, that really resonates with me. I think I just am in this like liminal space in the dark time of the year where things are swirling around in the darkness for me of like, it's ending, it's beginning, but it hasn't started, but it will. The light is coming, but nothing's growing, but I'm still in the darkness. It's just all squishy.
It's juicy.
It is.
I find it really juicy. And I find it juicy, and I find it scary, and I find myself sometimes, like you say, it's so swirly, like, what do I focus on? What, sometimes it's just easier, okay, I'm just going to play some Christmas carols, or you know what I mean? Because I've got to find a way of making, giving myself something to do or be for today and then tomorrow, whatever, until I get through this period. Because if I, one of these days when I'm totally retired, I'm just going to sit one day and just allow myself to just kind of sit in this and follow it and see where it takes me, and not answer the phone or bathe or anything. Because there, like you say, there's so much stuff going, there's so much energy around this. It's sinking energy. It's for me, it's sustaining energy. It's looking out for my fellow person energy. It's,
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes.
And it's also, like I said, it's communal, but it's also very internal for me, where it's like you say, my experience will never be the same as yours, just because I'm following my own swirls.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. I love that. I'm hearing nothing of the dark time of the year is the time where we wait for the light to come back.
Yeah.
That is absolutely not what I'm hearing in anything that we've talked about. It is rich and it offers so much, and it is different from what our overculture focuses on.
Yeah.
And I love that we have the opportunity to practice in it.
Yeah, and I'm not throwing any shade on what other people are doing. I'm just saying, this is I really delight in the richness of what we're doing. I think.
So how do we can we talk a little bit about how we honor, how we celebrate, how we honor, how we experience, the type of work that we do, who we work with during the dark time of the year?
Yes, I love it. If we could yes. So can I just say one thing? I think you might have put something along these lines for you. One of the things I love to do at this period is to just take my little deck chair out in the backyard and just sit in the dark. Then my neighbors, I know they think, what is that?
I love all these stories of the things in your back, and we've had women over. We've actually had meetings, for like some of the priestesses in your backyard.
Yeah,
and I remember one guy walked out with like his trash can.
Oh yeah, he's totally cool.
And he looked, and I know he saw us, but he wasn't gawking.
Yeah.
But he just pretended not to see us.
Yeah, he's totally cool.
I think at the time I was like squatting on the ground next to the fire, poking it with a stick.
Yeah, that's right. You were doing kind of like that kind of crone energy.
Yeah,
you were like, woo, yeah. Oh yeah, I've forgotten about that. Yes.
Okay.
And sometimes I make a fire, but sometimes I, and when I'm out there with the fire, I think they, that looks normal, right? So she's out there with the fire, but sometimes it's just me and the moon.
In the dark.
Just like whatever.
Did you get lost, honey? Nope.
Yeah,
well, maybe.
I'm exactly where I need to be right now. So yeah, I love it. I and again, I would expect that for everyone, this is going to be different, right? How they experience this is going to be different, and next year might be something different for me. But I delight in the energy for me, which is stop, and not necessarily stop and do something like stop and smell the roses. It's just stop, and so sometimes I just stop, like where I am, and just whoa, it's amazing.
Oh my gosh. I feel called to stop and smell the roses in the light time of the year. But what you just said is like blowing my mind. I feel inclined to stop.
To just stop. Yeah. Not
stop.
Do anything or be anything.
Yes. Stop and sit by the fire. Whether it be in my fireplace or, which by the way is on Patreon, I have the fire going. I absolutely love it. But anyway, I'm excited.
Thank God for you and Rory. I mean, you keep us going.
I'm excited to go home and look at my mantle. But
And your I want a picture of your leg lamp from outside.
I can do that.
Okay,
I can do that. But I do feel called to sit outside by my fire pit. And whenever we our circle does a group within our circle does retreat in the dark time of the year, normally February-ish. And one of the first things I look at, even before I look at the size of the Airbnb, is there a fire pit?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yes. And there's the that nurturing aspect of it, and we've talked about fire. But fire, when it's kind of, as cold as it's going to get in South Texas, right? But when it's kind of cold and it's dark and we're all just kind of sitting around, it's just amazing. These are not like kumbaya moments or, it's just like, we're just sitting there kind of croning out, right?
I think a fire in the summer is I'm noticing a very different energy for example, like a fire at my summer camp or a fire on the beach during the summer is a very different energy than the fires I'm with in the dark time of the year.
Oh yeah.
Wow,
Yeah,
I hadn't considered that. I wonder, there's got to be something in our DNA about fire and the dark time of the year.
Oh yeah,
you know,
totally.
I'm thinking of like the Baba Yaga myth and like needing to get the fire because it was put out at her house, and you know, I would just turn the light on or pull out my Bic lighter and and then there you go. But that's not how it was.
No, exactly.
And and I'm sure even though I know that in my brain, my body probably feels differently. You know, like that my cells know what it means to be afraid that the fire will go out.
Oh, yeah. Well, so here's the thing. I mean, how much of our bodies really changed in the past, 4,000 or 5,000 years, right?
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, besides gaining weight, but but you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, we're taller, but yeah, so I'm convinced that there is kind of this collective memory that resides in our cells and maybe kind of delights when we recapture some of those moments. Yeah.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. So I'm not super goddessy. That's just not the way I work. But I was thinking, I know a lot of people are, and I even in our circle is.
Yeah.
But I thought we could talk about some dark goddesses.
Sure.
And when we say dark goddesses, that refers to, well, it refers to a lot of things, but it particularly like goddesses of death or destruction, transformation. And they're oftentimes, I think, pushed from our culture because they are talking about the things that our culture does not put up on a pedestal.
They're frightening.
They are. And I say that in a way I'm like, yeah.
They scare the living bejesus out of, So can have you ever gone with us when we've gone up to Austin to the Dark Goddess balls?
No. No, I know we had one in our circle, but now I'm thinking that we modeled that after.
Yeah, those are super. I mean, it's at the Vortex.
Oh, okay.
The Vortex is that the name?
Yeah.
The Dark Vortex, something like that. And I mean, ours was just a pale imitation of a suggestion of a possibility of being the potential of that. Oh my gosh, that was so amazing because it's just filled with people who are in it for the dark goddesses. So I mean, one of our women went. She was Kali. She got dolls' heads and sewed them all over her skirt.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it was a bitch to sit, I'm sure, but
right.
But that was
Kali doesn't care.
Yeah, Kali don't care.
Fuck.
Kali don't care. Kali doesn't give a shit. Oh, what is that? Honey badger.
Yeah, Kali is very honey badger energy. Yeah.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Well, maybe honey badger has Kali energy.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, let's go that
yeah.
direction. But yeah,
Kali, dark goddess.
Dark
there
goddess.
You go.
Yeah. So dark. Yeah. The idea is that I think part of the darkness, the dark that's ascribed to them is that transformation, is that change. In some cases, they're psychopomps. In some cases, they do dramatic. They conduct dramatic change, and so for some reason that's dark. But whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
but whatever.
I love it.
Oh yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know I've said this like 6,000 times, but like goddesses are not really where I do a lot of deep work. And even that, I love Hecate.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. But I'm like, what's not to love about?
I know.
She's like the keeper of the crossroads. She's a Greek goddess, and she's associated with the underworld. Oftentimes, she has 3 heads, or there's like 3 of her.
Which ties into so many of the triple witch mythology, and oh my gosh, yeah, she's so amazing. Yeah,
and she's got that lantern, which this concept of. A lot of times the dark goddesses have or work with or around fire in some way, and her holding that lantern. And I can think of a lot of times where I've been lost or wondering where I need to go and like calling out to her for like her being at that crossroads, particularly, the crossroads of like life and death, but also other places.
Yeah. Any liminal spot. Yes, definitely. And and that idea of there being light in the darkness, right? Just as there's always darkness in the light. People.
Yeah.
We've got it. We don't have to do anything, right?
Right.
But I would suggest that it would enrich one's experience to recognize the ways in which we've tended to divide things, and to just let them just be, and recognize that they're going to be intertwined, and they're going to, there's going to be rivers of darkness running through the light, etc., and vice versa, and then you can kind of play with those, you can kind of ride the waves and ride the crests and play with that, or not, or observe, or whatever. But if just recognizing that, I think just lends so much more, such a higher quality to one's experience, to one's life.
Yeah. I mean, we all have shadow work available to us, right?
Exactly.
But I don't think shadows are really possible without the light. So,
other dark goddesses, and like you say, fire. I think of Sekhmet. In fact, one of my students is writing a paper on Hathor. Or it's a music paper, so they're writing it on the sistrum. But then,
I don't know what that is, but
cool. It's an instrument you've probably seen in the films where they have like these bars with little discs on it, and they shake it.
Yeah.
And so it's a part of Hathor's cult, and it's supposed to take your energy to help raise your energy up to Hathor, and then Sekhmet. So like rivers of blood,
Sekhmet,
and fire.
rivers of blood,
and fire.
That we reference that on one of our Witchy Ethics and Politics number 2, I believe.
Oh, that's true.
We talked about
yes.
Sekhmet, river of blood.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yes. Such a good discussion.
And that's transformation, right? She's destroying the corrupt. She's destroying the disease. She's destroying the things that need to be just gotten out. And probably she's taken a couple, there's probably some collateral damage in there too. Because, rivers of blood and fire it's like, oh, is she good or bad? Nah, whatever.
No, right.
So you get out of the way if you can. But yeah, so Hecate, Kali, Sekhmet, Lilith. I dedicated to Lilith a few years ago.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, yeah, that was coming out of my divorce.
I imagine it was.
Woo! Yes, indeed. I have to show. I have like a little. I'll show you my little statue before you go. Anyway, but this whole idea of change, but also autonomy. Like this, a woman in a man's world, creating that space for herself, even when everyone says she's bad, even when everyone says she's wrong. And she's like, whatever. I mean, I don't know if she felt she was wrong or not, but she said, I'm just going to keep doing this because this is me.
I just want to put my hand up in the air and be like, yes.
Can I get a twinkle?
Right? I'm twinkling.
Yes. So yeah, those are the goddesses.
And then I also think of goddesses of descent.
Yes. Oh, Inanna.
Yes. Okay. And I have a personal deep love for Inanna.
Yes. And you're wearing a scarf.
I am. Yes. And her descent, where she sheds everything in her descent. So I'm a big fan of working with her, and then also Persephone, who also did the descent. She comes back and goes back down.
She goes back.
Goes around.
Well, she's very cyclical, right?
Yeah, but I definitely view her more as a dark time of the year goddess. I don't know if that's just because of my leaning towards the dark time of the year. Do you view her as all or one or the other?
So I think of her mother as the lighter side, and she's the darker side because she goes down, and then her mom weeps and then brings her back or whatever. So
I love your telling of the story. Yeah. She goes down, her mom weeps, she comes back or whatever.
But she's liminal, and so to me, it's not necessarily light or dark; it's both, and which right? But I think the parts of her that I definitely resonate with or celebrate more are the ones that would reflect the darker parts. The dark when she's down in Hades and she's doing some deep work.
Nice.
Okay, thank you. So yeah.
One other concept, like I'm going to do this, like air quotes, goddess that I have worked with and that I spearheaded a ritual around in our circle was the air quotes goddess of Mother Night.
Oh, right.
But really less an embodied goddess that's name is Mother Night, and more of this concept of like night as like this mother, this like this space for transformation. This like rich time, like in a womb or in the ocean, this rich space that's held for us to transform, to die, to be reborn, to change, to decay.
Yeah, she's kind of a like not an archetype, but kind of a personification
Yes.
of an element, or
Yeah.
a personification
Thank you.
of a
Yes.
of a natural
Yeah.
a natural thing, a natural being, a natural state. Yeah, I love that. I love that a
when
lot.
we
Yeah.
did the Mother Night, the ritual, that was definitely the energy I was going for. I find those concepts, those personifications, and especially archetypes to be easier to work with, or more accessible for me. Maybe not easier is the wrong word. Democratism is never easy, I don't think, to work.
I think about this. I remember one of your Beltane rituals where we're basically just like diving into the earth. like instead of flowers and running around in maidens with flower crowns and all that, we were like diving into.
Yeah.
Like, okay, Beltane, Yule. No, Beltane Samhain. That's
right.
it.
Beltane Samhain. They're opposite each other on the wheel.
Yeah, that's right. So, you kind of, again, that idea that they're running through each other, right?
Yeah.
So, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's huge. That's huge.
Do you want to chat about like the energy of dark time?
So, as we talk about this, one of the things I think about, and we kind of touched this a little bit, is I always think of, as we move into the dark time of the year, Samhain and Yule. Samhain to me is like spirit, and Yule is body. Yule is about, like I said, the surviving, the clan, very physical, and Samhain is very spiritual, but literally spirits, right?
Right.
And so as I think about that, people play with that in a number of different ways, right? But that idea of in Samhain, when you're working with the dead, you're usually kind of stilling yourself, maybe sinking, and allowing yourself. I'm going to speak for myself. Sorry, I'm allowing myself to open up to these spirits that that might come to me or whatever, but I can only do that if I allow myself to ground and to sink and to be present and then can open up for that. And so that's a part of the energy for me, is that kind of, I don't know, I guess it's sinking to me. It's sinking energy. And then I kind of just stay there through you. and then in Imbolc, I start like peeking my head up, like, wow, what's going on up there? That kind of stuff. What about for you?
I think I would agree with that. I like to take the energy deeper and to sink it down. And so like just for maybe people who aren't familiar with like kind of what we're talking about, high energy or energy raising is like high energy. I'm at the club, like my energy is lifting up. I might be, like
literally throwing your hands in the air.
Yes. It's, and if you listen to music and like the music is getting more intense and, and like it's building energy, you want to like, I want to start jumping.
Yes,
it's building. I want to start jumping. I want to start dancing. I want to start running around. Like that to me is like energy raising. And that is more of my feelings on the light time of the year.
Oh yeah.
The dark time of the year, I find myself wanting to sink. I like stomping my feet, maybe kneeling down on the ground, trying to get as low as I can. It doesn't mean that I'm still, because I'm not still very often.
You're not, yeah.
And even in,
no, you're not.
And even in my dark time, my body tends to not be still, but I might be more swaying or rocking or like dipping down lower, but it's still, I don't want to make it sound like it's not intense. I find there's just as much intensity. It's just the opposite side of that coin. And as an energy lover and as an energy witch and as someone who ecstasy is a part of my practice, there's just as much ecstasy in the energy sinking as there is in energy raising. But I find that people are like, "Oh, you're an ecstatic witch." Oh, so and then they think that all I do is energy raising, and it's like those energy sinking moments are just as delicious for me.
Yeah. No, and yes, for a number of different reasons, but I so when you're thinking about that, are you slowing? I mean, is your energy as fast? Or does it slow down for you to sink? And you may not have even thought about it in using these terms.
I do think it's slower, but there's still movement. It's still, we use the word swirly. Like
okay,
it's
gotcha.
still, it's sinking, it's swirling. For me, there's still movement, even if it's slower.
And it's okay. I can see what you mean by the direction, like energy rising, energy going up, as opposed to
energy sinking. Like it's like a boiling, bubbling cauldron. Energy raising to me is like fireworks or a burning fire going up.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
I love that. Thank you for sharing.
And one of our circle's favorite songs, the dark time of the year songs, is a song called "Going Down in the Cauldron."
In the cauldron, yes.
And it's so funny because we, we have so many songs that we sing, and there are songs for all different parts of the year, all different holidays, all different things, all different occasions, but we sing like there's a desire to sing this song.
Like pretty much
right? Like it could be like summer solstice, and it's like we're singing this song about going down into the dark time of the year.
Yeah, and the crones are calling.
Going to be reborn. It's July.
But whatever. If the crones are calling, the crones are calling. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah,
that's true. That is true. That is so true.
Oh yeah. So,
are there any other dark time of the year chants that you really like?
Yeah. So there's a myriad number of Hecate chants. One that is a popular one among our circle is the Hecate, keeper of the crossroads, Hecate, holder of the flame, Hecate, wisdom in the darkness, guide our way. Let's keep going. Guide our way. All that dies is reborn, formless sinking into form. Rise awake, born anew, walking forward, passing through. My favorite line in that is formless sinking into form.
Me
too. I like lose my shit when he gets that.
Yes. I just want to turn into mush and like go into the ground.
Yes.
And if that isn't like a phrase that is for me embodies dark time of the year, sinking, formless. Like
sometimes I'll sing a counterpoint and I just sing formless sinking into form, formless sinking into form.
Oh my gosh.
Formless into form. Oh my gosh! But the next time we do that, listen, because I do that.
Oh my gosh, I want to listen. Yeah. Oh, this was the best line of the whole thing, I think. And you do it over and over. Yes.
Oh my god! And I just drop. It's like I'm drumming. I'm drumming. As you know, when it's time for us to bring something on home, you come and you get eye contact. Because I start, I go.
A couple of times ago when we were drumming together, at one point in time I actually like stuck my hand in front of your face because I couldn't tell if you were paying attention. And we were about to end.
Yeah.
You were.
Yeah. I was, but sometimes I'm not.
Sometimes you're not.
So I appreciate that. Thank you. I never get upset when you do that because it's like. But yeah, so that one, that's an amazing one, and that's one I have done out in my backyard, like I said, my neighbors.
For your neighbors.
Yeah, for my neighbors. Or I just sang that for like an hour.
Oh.
I did it soft, because which makes it even more creepy, I'm sure. Mom, what's going on next door?
Right. They just hear quietly.
Like it probably would just be better if I just sang
just
it.
Full throat.
But yeah, so that's one.
I love that. I love that. What about
Old Woman?
Old Woman.
You want to sing that one?
Yes, and in my head I always hear a rattle.
Yes, yes, because of the the bones. Oh,
yeah.
Wait.
What a witchy thing! Like just within reach, you've got a rattle.
But it's actually a loofah that someone gave it to me and I just let it dry.
Oh, I love
and so
this.
those are the loofah seeds inside of it.
I love this.
So yeah, shall we do?
What
do we? Okay. Old woman, wrap your cloak around me. Death bringer, rattle my bones. Old woman, wrap your cloak around me. Death bringer, rattle my bones. 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 Rattle my bones, rattle my bones, rattle my bones.
Yes.
Yeah.
That one makes me want to wrap myself in a cloak.
Yeah.
And like hunker
And
down.
like hunch
over.
Yeah.
And like I'm like rocking or something. Yeah.
And you also dance to that one too, as I
do.
recall.
Absolutely.
So kind of maybe that sinking energy, but it's like there's some dancing going on there.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, it's and what I love about them is that for me, it's this it's powerful. Mm-hmm. It's dark in as much as it plays with the ideas that we've just been talking about. Where you go within, you're changing, you're transforming, and this is for me. It's very much me. It's not okay. Let's all change now. Everybody's doing their own thing in community, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the things I love about those chants is that we're all having our own experiences. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I love that the dark time of the year offers us that space, like you said, to be doing that deep work, that sinking work, that transformational work, that death work, all in community, but all separate, all indeed. In our own darkness.
Yes, so would it be.
So would it be.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today as we talk about the dark time of the year and all that means to us as members of this culture, but also in the witchy world. In the
witchy world and in our individual experiences. Mm-hmm.
And we are so grateful for your support all times of the year.
Yes.
The dark time and the light time of the year. We're excited that in March we will be doing our first Patreon Zoom meet and greet with our Patreon members. So if you're interested in getting more information about that, you can hop on over and join us at Patreon and eventually be able in March of 2024 to jump on and chat with us about all things witchy.
Chat with us and each other.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We hope you have enjoyed the magic that has unfolded here at Witchy Wit.
It would be great if you would help make Witchy Wit possible and get access to exclusive content by donating on Patreon.
We'd love it if you join our witchy community and enjoy shareable content on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
Would you do us a big favor and support us by rating and reviewing us wherever you get your podcasts? It's free and helps witchy folks find us.
Feel free to email us at witchywitpodcast@gmail.com. We love to hear from our community. Reach out and let us know what's brewing in your cauldron.
New episodes are released every second and fourth Friday. Follow us on your favorite podcasting platform so our episodes go right to your playlist. You can listen as you ride your broom.
Stay witchy, y'all!